Guys, I feel like we've reached one of those episodes where I think it's time for me to speak directly to all my fellow women out there. Of course, my podcast is always open to all, but if you'd like to skip this episode because you're not interested in me complaining about my womanness and lack of education that we receive about everything about our bodies, or the fact that, we bleed from our vaginas every single month, then you might want to skip this episode because that's what we're getting into today. That's your cue to leave. Okay? All right. So, now that the misogynistic demographic has left the chat, I'd like to kind of fill you guys in on the contents of this conversation today. There is not enough education on women's health. At least in my day, I think we had one lesson on the menstrual cycle in 7th grade during the sex education unit and called it good. You know what I'm saying? And not to mention, during this time, we are incredibly naive, okay? I didn't take anything seriously at that age. And we're just fucking awkward, at the end of the day. So, first of all, I probably wasn't paying attention to half the shit I was fucking learning because I was immature as fuck. And I also probably didn't understand half the shit either. I didn't even know how to control what my body was feeling at that time, let alone understand what the fuck was happening, okay? I was never focused on what I was learning because, hormones, okay? So that's what I want to get into today. My frustrations with the system for not prioritizing enough education surrounding women's health, but also how this has affected me and so many other women. Now, let me just make one thing clear. I am not a women's health expert, okay? Nor do I intend to be, but hopefully after this conversation, you have a better awareness or at least interest in learning more about our bodies as women. I think it's important that we have these conversations and also do the research on our own if we weren't given that information like we should have, right? We can sit here and blame society all day because that's my favorite fucking thing to do, but at the end of the day, it's not going to fix the problem, so we still need to educate ourselves, okay? All right. So, what sparked this sudden interest for me? Well, I recently just had this doctor's appointment, and for the most part, she said everything was good, you know what I'm saying? But I let her know, I'm like, hey, I've been having my period. It's been lasting 12 days. She's looking at me so fucking crazy. She's like, girl, 12 days? Like, the fuck? That is not correct. So obviously I was playing the self-diagnosed game on WebMD after that appointment because she wanted me to come back and do an ultrasound to make sure everything was fucking Gucci up there, right? And me personally, I was always one of those girls who started my birth control since the day I fucking opened my first tampon. You know what I mean? I have had a terrible history with cramps, and at the time that just seemed like the best solution to my discomfort. But about a year ago, I decided to just get off birth control because I just didn't like the way that it was making me feel. I felt like it was unnatural. I didn't like the concept of it. So fast forward, now I'm sitting in my doctor's office today and I'm describing her about these 12-day long periods. And I kind of just figured it was, my body's way of re-regulating itself to get back to its normal, I don't know, state of being, if you will. And at one point, she's throwing around the word anemic. I'm like, girl, that does not sound good. So I'm looking up all this ridiculous shit, fucking paranoid. Like, what the fuck am I about to do? And I promise there's a point to the story. I'm getting there. Just hold on. I had to go in for another ultrasound. And when I came back, the lady was like super nice. She was explaining everything to me. And then she's like, this is probably too much information, but honestly, I don't really give a fuck because this was a wild experience for me. Okay. So with an ultrasound, you can do it two ways. One of them, you can go over the stomach, but that's normally for, women who are pregnant because it's already expanded, right? So then the other way is just literally they stick a fucking camera up your vagina, basically, and take a look around, okay? Okay, well, this whole time, this woman is fucking in my vagina. She's having a whole entire fucking conversation with me, and she's like, oh my God, these are the best ovaries we've ever seen. Like, you just have the best ovaries. And then she's got like a fucking student worker in there, and she's like, do you mind if I just have her take a look around? I'm like, bitch, fuck, take me out to dinner first, damn. But like, you already have the fucking stick in me, what am I gonna say? No? Like, fuck. Anyway, that was probably way too much information, and I'm sorry, but it was just a weird experience, and I needed to fucking get it out, because what are we doing? I was like, sure. Like, fuck. Anyway, it turns out everything is fine and I'm all good. Nothing seems to be amiss because apparently I just have the most amazing ovaries in the world. But after these appointments, I realized that I don't pay too much attention to my cycle. And I hated that. I was like, I know I have a period every month, obviously, but I don't pay attention to the other 23 days of my cycle. I mean, fuck, like I had no idea that there were these 3 other phases to the cycle, and that what you eat or how much you sleep and what kind of workouts you do during all these phases all contribute to your overall health. And my mind was fucking blown. So recently now I've been kind of doing all this research to understand these different phases and how they may affect me personally and emotionally and physically and all of it, right? Because I, up until this point, had no idea what any of these different phases in our cycle meant. And I think it's so important that we understand it as women, because the menstrual cycle is so tied to everything else that we do, which is so crazy to think about, but it's a fact. And so I don't really want to get all sciencey on you and dive deep into the nitty-gritty of all that, because I am not the Holistic Women's Health Podcast, although that is a great podcast. I would recommend it and check it out. I'm more here to just kind of trigger that initial awareness that things like this exist, and do what you will with this information, alright? So yes, the older I have gotten, the more I have become increasingly frustrated with the lack of education surrounding women's health. And it has led me to do some of this research on my own, which, fine, cool, whatever. But until this point, I didn't even know what kinds of things I should have been researching. Like, fuck. So this kind of leads me into my second point. Part of the reason why I feel like we don't have enough education surrounding this is because people think it's taboo. Like no one talks about it. It's super weird. It's very like gray area. We've grown so accustomed to labeling our period as something that's disgusting and unnatural, when it is in fact the most natural thing about being a woman. And sure, do I feel gross and nasty and like shit when I'm on my period? Yeah, I'm bleeding out of my fucking vagina. What do you want from me? You know what I mean? But as a woman, I truly feel like we've been taught to hate our periods. Like it's this terrible thing that happens to us every month, and we should feel ashamed of being on it or even speaking about how it affects us. And now, I'm not saying we need to fucking get on a mic and preach to the world, I'm on my period. Like we don't need to be doing that shit. But I'm just saying, like, let's talk about it, you know? And I just hate that we almost have to feel like we can't speak out about how it affects us because it makes people feel uncomfortable. Yes, I'm using the air quotes, okay? But fuck that. Seriously, like, there is no reason why we should feel ashamed to be on our period or talk about it because the rest of the world is uncomfortable. Like, what? Growing up, I had maybe one conversation about it with my mom because I felt so uneasy talking about it, for one. And for two, because everyone around me, kids at school, teachers educating me on this topic, just made it so difficult to even feel like I could be interested in talking about this because everyone thought it was like weird and gross. And I felt like I needed to keep it a secret every time I was on my period because I didn't want everybody to know, you know? And I'm not saying that we need to shout it from the rooftops and let everybody and their fucking grandmother know that I'm bleeding from my vagina. But like, can we, you know, normalize having regular conversations about what it means to be on your period and, you know, why we have them? Like, what the fuck? Anyway, I'm getting passionate. I guess I'm just struggling to understand why this narrative has been pushed and created in our society. We shouldn't be scared of our own bodies. You know, the menstrual cycle is actually a beautiful thing. The woman's body is fucking amazing. Like, you're telling me we can carry a whole ass human inside of us? Some of us 2, some of us 3. Like, God, I can't imagine giving birth to fucking triplets. That would be insane. But I guess I'd really like to shift this narrative surrounding feminine health and hygiene. Like, everyone should know more about it, I feel like. And young girls should feel comfortable talking about it and know how it affects them so that they don't get to be my age and say, what the hell is the luteal phase? You know what I'm saying? So there's a lack of education. People think it's taboo. What else? Oh yeah. Why the hell are we governing what we can do and can't do with women's bodies? What are we doing? And I'm going to keep this brief because, again, I want this to be a space where we can have open discussions and share differences in opinion. I think that's healthy, but I don't want to necessarily push my ideals onto anyone else either. That's never my intention. Although, as I'm saying this out loud, in thinking about my previous episodes, I'd say I might not be doing the best job at that. But here we are. I also, this is also my podcast, so people can choose whether they like me or not. I don't really give a fuck. I just don't understand why there has always been a constant war on women's health. I can't even imagine what it must have been like growing up in like the 50s or 60s, you know, and like sometimes like my grandma has told me some stories, you know. My grandma, she got married right out of high school and had a child right away, and there was this instilled expectation that your purpose was to have children and take care of the house, and you couldn't have dreams and you couldn't work. And my grandma couldn't even like wear jeans. She was like, I only could wear jeans on the farm. And you know what I'm saying? Like, she wanted to wear jeans, but they're like, no, you gotta wear a skirt every day of your life. Like, that's so weird to me. Anyway, I just can't even really like picture what that would be like. And let me just say that a lot of women walked so we could run, babe, because holy shit. And so I think the point I'm trying to make here is that women have been fighting for respect for far too long. to be seen, to be heard, and to just honestly be valued as a human and not valued for our bodies. I think there's confusion that women want to be treated the same way as men and have the same rights that they do. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think it's just that we want to be treated with respect at the end of the day. We want to be in control over our rights to our bodies. Like, we shouldn't have to be governed by men who have no idea what it's like to be a woman. I'm sorry, but I have a really hard time. I'm not sorry. I have a hard time understanding how men think that it's okay to govern our bodies. I think that is so strange, and I don't even know where that concept came about to be. But anyway, we don't want to be dismissed in spaces where there may be less women in the room than men, or especially when there's a debate over laws surrounding women's rights. Like, be serious. I just think at the end of the day, as a woman, I don't want to be talked down to. Don't mansplain to me because you think I have no idea what offsides mean. Like, okay, and even if I didn't know what that meant, explain it to me like a normal human. That's what I don't understand. Like, when you don't understand something or somebody doesn't understand something, you don't come at them with this, I know what the fuck I'm doing. No, I hate that shit. Just speak to me normally, bro. Like, what are we doing? And this division between genders is just another form of separation that contributes to the lack of connection and empathy that we've lost as humans. And I think it's only fair that we start bringing awareness to that. So, being a woman sucks sometimes. We grow up not knowing shit about fuck when it comes to our bodies. We grow up being disgusted by our periods, and then on top of that, we have to deal with ignorant ass men making decisions that restrict our rights to our own bodies. That's super interesting. And so I feel like I could sit here and talk about this all day, probably provide a few credited sources, but I'll save that for one of my TED Talks one day, okay? If there's anything I can leave with the group, I guess it would be this. The first step in enacting change is being part of it. If we sit here and be frustrated all we want about the lack of education, the stigma surrounding the menstrual cycle, or the mishandling of women's rights, but you're not being proactive, you're not contributing to change. I don't want my daughter to grow up in a world where she's scared to talk about her period or ask for help when she finds herself needing to make a serious decision regarding her body. I want to learn, educate myself in the areas where society failed me, and participate in spaces that support women's rights. Also, never stop talking about this. When people go silent, that invokes fear. We can't allow this conversation to die out because it's important. Women are beautiful. The menstrual cycle is beautiful. And we are capable of breaking those stereotypical boundaries and stigmas that have been placed on us for fucking centuries. On some fucking Handmaid's Tale shit. Like, we're not doing that shit. But anyway, I'm getting carried away. Bringing it down. I'm, gonna hop off my soapbox now. I like to say that a lot, not sure why, but alas, we are yet again at the end of another episode. What the fuck did I just say? Did I just say alas? Alas? I'm not sure what the fuck is going on, but I better go before I start saying shit like cheerio and oi poppet. Okay, no, for real. I'm literally so tired and I'm in my pajamas and it's time for bed. So, bye. I hopefully will see you next week. We're trying. And, yeah, bye.